get me down again.
I have just chaired a meeting of the Cabinet where we agreed that the government should call a general election to be held on the 8th of June.
On the 18th of April 2017, Theresa May surprised the world by saying that she would call a snap general election, which she had previously said she was not going to call. This then led to 2 months of manic campaigning from parties trying to get their manifesto and promises out to the public. Labour ran a great campaign that was met with overwhelmingly positive responses, whereas the Conservatives' campaign fell short in many places, making it one of the worst campaigns the Conservatives had ever ran. But before we get into the campaigning or anything complicated like that, let's explain how the British Parliament works. The UK has 650 local constituencies, which are represented in the Houses of Parliament by 650 seats. These seats are represented by different parties depending on how the local constituency vote in the general election. The map in front of you is that of the 2015 general election, which saw a massive majority from the Conservatives. This is represented by the large amount of land that is blue. However, following this election came Brexit, the vote that shook the nation and split it almost 50-50. This uncertainty led to Theresa May calling a new election, as she felt she needed a bigger majority to be successful in Brexit negotiations with EU ministers. Now you have an understanding of politics on a national scale and how local constituencies fit into that, let's focus on one local constituency in particular, the one highlighted in pink, Lichfield. Lichfield has been a Conservative constituency since 1992, and in this election Chris Worsley was the Labour representative and opposition to current reigning MP Michael Fabricant. We were lucky enough to talk to Chris on election day and get his take on his campaign and how he thought he had done. How do you feel your campaign has gone, and do you think you've done enough to defeat the long-standing stronghold of Michael Fabricant and the Tories in Lichfield? Or
well, it's always going to be a tough seat for Labour in Lichfield. We actually won the seat in 1992. It was the Mid-Staffordshire by-election, but a lot of the constituency has changed since then. In 97 we only lost by 200 votes, but that was sort of the height of New Labour and Blairism. But you just never know, do you? I mean, with the events of the last couple of years, with Donald Trump winning an election, an unknown reality TV host, with Brexit happening, you just never know. So what I wanted to do, why I wanted to stand, was to give an outlet for Labour supporters in the Lichfield constituency.
We went on to ask Chris if he was elected that night, what would be the first thing he would do as the Labour MP for Lichfield. This was his response.
I'd open a constituency office straight away. So Michael Fabricant hasn't got a constituency office, so basically most MPs have got a constituency office. It's a place people can go to offer help. Michael Fabricant hasn't got that.
We then asked Chris what he thought his target age range was with his campaign.
I think it's those 18 to 24-year-olds. Yeah. So did a debate at the college a few days ago, and the Labour message really resonated there. So it's all about scrapping tuition fees. It's all about £10 minimum wage, bringing the EMA back. I feel that sort of in the last 7 years of the Tory government, young people have been hit really, really hard. People are coming out of university with 53 grand worth of debt. That is a lot of debt to put onto a 21-year-old, 22-year-old. So I think that things need to change, and I think because of Brexit, young people are more engaged now than they've ever been. So I think it's down to those guys to sort of invent the future.
Back on the national side of the election, the count was now well underway, with exit polls suggesting that Conservatives were likely to lose their majority and Labour likely to close the margin. As the result came through, it was evident the exit poll was correct, with the Conservatives losing a lot of seat and their majority with it, and ending up having to negotiate with the right wing, DUP, to help them get over the majority and back into power. Following this result, we came back here to Michael Fabricant's house to interview him and ask him a few questions about the result.
Hello.
Hi, you're right.
Hi, nice to meet you. Come on in.
Cheers.
Obviously there's been quite a lot of controversy around this election with the Conservatives losing quite a few seats.
Do you still support Theresa May as the Prime Minister, and do you think she's a good
Yeah, I do.
leader?
I mean, she didn't come over very well. It's sad, actually. She came, you know, when you know her, and I do know her, we were texting each other today, funnily enough, she's actually very friendly and quite normal. But stick a camera in front of her and she suddenly becomes rigid, and
Yeah.
that's how it came across, I'm afraid. I think as well the way the campaign was run, you know, all this strong and stable and sound bites, I think it's all a bit, you know, pathetic, actually.
Yeah.
And the other thing we didn't explain, you see, older voters did not vote for Corbyn because they could remember what left-wing policies did to the economy of this country. So he had all these attractive things, you know, which would mean throwing money, like, for example, free tuition fees, you know, being paid for by the state.
We then went on to ask him about Labour's manifesto and the growing threat it posed to Conservatives nationwide.
In the election, there was a growing threat nationally from Labour with that manifesto, and
It's
saying
very popular on the face of it.
it was. Yeah. Do you think that it was a good manifesto to get people? What did you think of Labour? Did you feel the threat from it, or?
Well, I mean, it was certainly a very good, you know, if you promise everybody everything,
Yeah.
you know, if you're young and don't know any better, and I know that sounds an awful thing to say, but that's the way it's sort of turned out, you'd be attracted by it. But at the end of the day, you can't make money from nothing. And so older people realise that the last time Labour tried to do this was in the 60s and 70s, and the country actually went bankrupt. And believe it or not, if you went abroad on holiday, you couldn't take more than £50 away with you.
Right.
Because we didn't want the pound being exchanged for the franc and the Deutschmark in those days, you know, be the euro today. We'd never been in such bad economic state before.
Okay.
And that's why, by the way, Tony Blair was quite right-wing, you know,
Yeah.
because he knew full well that you didn't want to have economic collapse.
So this is now your 25th year representing Lichfield
Gosh.
and the mid Staffordshire area. You've obviously been the representative for a long time. Are you looking to maybe kind of step down after the next thing?
because I don't want to
keep
let
going?
Robert pass it.
So are you looking to let someone else take over as the Tory
Well, it doesn't work like that. I
representative or
mean,
not?
at the end of the day, if I'm feeling, you know, that I'm not up to it, and if other people think I'm not up to it, then I'll go. But
But
you
for
know,
now, you're feeling like
yeah,
you like it and you're
yeah,
going to keep going.
absolutely.
We then asked Michael the final and most important question on whether or not he thinks the current Tory government will be strong and stable, or whether or not there will be another election on the horizon.
To kind of wrap things up then, really, do you think there will be another election before
Oh,
the
God
next
help
scheduled
us.
one? Or
God help us.
What do you think will happen
I
there?
don't know is the answer.
So you
I
don't-
mean, we're
yeah.
still negotiating with the DUP, although that's partly because of the dreadful fire in West London. So, you know, that's been postponed for a day. Let's hope we haven't got another election for a few more years. It's actually where Robert Pass and I at least did agree was that it is so expensive.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get any money locally from central government or from the Conservative Party nationally. We have to raise all the money locally in Lichfield.
Yeah.
And I mean the Lichfield constituencies, I'm including Burntwood and all the other areas. People make donations and, you know, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's all right if there's a 4 or 5 year gap, but God help us if we're going to have another election. I'm not sure that the British people want that either.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And so for now, that's where we are. Theresa May has negotiated with the DUP to come up with a deal that will allow her to get a slight majority, and another general election may well be on the horizon, but still, no official word has been said yet. So from us, we hope you've enjoyed our insight into the 2017 general election, nationally and locally, and for now, we will leave you with this.
I've just been to see Her Majesty the Queen, and I will now form a government that can provide certainty and lead Britain forward at this critical time for our country. This government will guide the country through the crucial Brexit talks that begin in just 10 days and deliver on the will of the British people by taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union.